Welcome back to the program. So it looks like the Texas Democrats have done it again. Remember back in 2021, they decided to also skedaddle out of town as well to avoid the responsibilities for the voters and their constituents to do the people's work. Well, once again, they have done the exact same thing, except this time, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, has said that those that flee will be arrested when they return. And that is exactly what they should do, because you cannot break quorum, which is what this is called, and leave town because it is a violation of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act as well, which I'll get into here in just a little bit. So this is the story here. Texas Democrats flee the state of Texas to block GOP congressional redistricting. AG Paxton calls for their arrest. The Texas Democrats reportedly fled to Illinois to break quorum to block the Texas House from holding a vote in a special session. The new congressional map will add 5 GOP House seats. The Texas Democrats pulled a similar stunt back in 2021. Dozens of Texas Democrats plan to flee the state and a special session on Sunday afternoon, making a last-ditch effort to disrupt a mid-decade redistricting attempt forced by President Donald Trump, according to 2 people briefed on the matter. It marks the second act of breaking quorum when the state house will lack the minimum number of lawmakers needed to conduct official business. Let's see, 4 years ago they did this. Sunday's move will almost certainly set off a nationwide redistricting arms race that threatens to upend the 2026 midterm election map. Texas Democrat State Representative James Tallarico boasted about fleeing the state to block the GOP. My Democratic colleagues, should be my comrades, let's face it, and I just left the state of Texas to break quorum and stop Trump's redistricting power grab, according to whatever this idiot said. Texas Attorney General has said he's not playing around this time and that he is calling for their arrest when they get back. Democrats in the Texas House who try and run away like cowards will be found, arrested, and brought back to the Capitol immediately. So that is what's happening. Now, let's break it down a little bit further. Can the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, arrest them? The answer to that question is yes. Why? Well, because they have committed at least 2 felonies that is punishable by anywhere between 5 and 10 years in prison per felony. Okay? So here it is. The first one, fleeing the state to break quorum and obstruct legislative proceedings, is generally considered obstruction of justice. That would be U.S. Code 1505, which again carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and, of course, many, many fines. Additionally, these Democrats could and should be charged with corruptly obstructing, influencing, or impeding an official proceeding, which would be U.S. Code 1512 under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which basically puts in language that says you are not allowed to flee the state because you don't want to do the people's work, okay? And so they should be and they can be arrested, and let's hope that they do, because this type of behavior cannot continue, and they're worried. And what are they worried about? Well, we're going to get into that here in just a second. But what they're majorly worried about is the fact that they have been, for the last 30, 40 years, illegally redistricting from the standpoint of using race-based statistics in order to facilitate new congressional redistricting guidelines. And so what's going to happen is they're going to find out soon enough, because the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take up the case on race-based redistricting. And if it goes our way, bye-bye Democrats. That's right, bye-bye Democrats. Listen to this. So the Supreme Court is going to rule on race-based congressional districts. This would give Republicans a massive advantage in the 2026 midterms. So the U.S. Supreme Court has signaled on Friday that it is likely to rehear the case of Louisiana versus Calais, a case that challenges the idea of race-based congressional redistricting. If they rule against this, other states are going to follow. This would give Republicans a huge advantage heading into the 2026 midterm elections. Democrats could lose as many as 25 seats just through redistricting alone. Okay? The reaction from the Democrats would be nuclear, of course. Remember how awful they were during the Kavanaugh hearings? Imagine that times 1,000. The full text of the tweet below reads this: I cannot stress to you enough how earth-shattering it would be for the Supreme Court to strike down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, the electoral cornerstone of the post-war liberal consensus would be gone overnight, and with it, the Democratic Party's ability to contest the House of Representatives as we know it. So you know what would happen? You'd actually have to come up with real ideas and real policies to sell the American people to see if they want to buy it. Instead, what have they been doing? They've been redistricting. They've been making it so that they have illegal aliens counted in the census. They've been redistricting to make sure that in the urban centers, they're splitting those up into different fractions so that they can create and gain more seats. Then they can lie to you. That's right, you the voters. They can continue to lie to you and say, oh, here, this is what we're going to do. We believe in this. We believe in that. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then, of course, when they win, what do? They just become what they are, which are communists. And that's how they rule. So once we get rid of your illegal voting base, Democrats, once we redistrict you to the point where you can't use your racial bias to create falsified seats in redistricting, then you're not going to have anything to run on because nobody wants what you're selling. You people are crazy. You people are dangerous. You people are demonic. You people like to kill babies on the day that they're born. You like to flood the country with murderers and rapists and pedophiles and drug dealers and drug cartel members and child traffickers and women abusers. How would you expect the American people to vote for any of that? Of course we wouldn't, because we're not stupid. But yet, there's a lot of idiots out there that you've been able to brainwash for so long because you're so good at using Communist Manifesto to lie and subvert them and then indoctrinate them into thinking that what's good for them is somehow evil and bad. Well, thankfully, the American people have woken up to your horrific game. And I think what's going to happen here is the Supreme Court, hopefully, is going to strike this down. I don't believe it's going to be a 7-2. I don't believe it's going to be a 6-3. It's probably going to be a 5-4. It's going to be a barely pass one, or, God forbid, the other way. But let's hope that it passes. Let's hope that the Supreme Court does the right thing, because it should not be fair to count illegals for redistricting purposes. And it should not be fair to count minorities just based on the area and then somehow turn those into super minority districts so that you can gain more House seats, right? Even crock of you-know-what, right, Jasmine, is now, if this redistricting happens the way it should, she's going to lose her entire seat. Then she's going to have to rerun for Congress in a Republican district, and bye-bye, Jazzy, because you're not going to be in Congress because you probably never should have been in Congress to begin with, because it's not like you have any policies the American people want, and certainly not the state of Texas wants. So again, we're going to see what happens, but I don't know when they're going to do it. My guess would be this decision would come down probably June of 2026 would be my guess. I don't think it would come down any sooner than that. And the main reason is because they usually do the more controversial decisions at the end of their terms. Could it happen in October when they come back? Maybe. Maybe it'll be an early Christmas gift. Who knows? But more than likely, it'll be June of 2026 when the decision goes down. They may actually start litigating the decision and discussing the decision as early as maybe March or April of next year. But we'll see what happens. And remember, they also have the birthright citizenship decision to also litigate as well. And again, if they look at it the correct way, which was, it was supposed to be for the children of slaves and not just for anybody that decides to have a baby and come onto American soil. Remember, it's subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That is the key. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, are they going to do the correct thing on that? God, I don't know, honestly. Part of me thinks it's a bridge too far, and I don't think the Supreme Court has the testicular fortitude to go there. And quite frankly, the redistricting thing, I kind of feel that they might not go there either, but I hope I'm wrong on both of them, to be quite honest. So we're going to see what happens, but that's the whole, the whole game in a nutshell. They don't want to be redistricted because if Texas does this, you're going to add 5 more seats. I've already been told that South Carolina is just waiting next. South Carolina is going to redistrict as well. That will create between 1 and 3 extra seats. Utah is planning on doing it as well, cutting off a part of the Salt Lake City area and minimizing the amount of minorities in the Salt Lake City area to increase the map and redistricting to include more areas that are not predominantly minority based. So that would create 2, maybe 3 extra seats. Believe it or not, they're looking at this in Florida as well. Florida, the southern part of Miami, and of course the Jacksonville area, the Orlando area. These are some of these areas where there are more minorities. They're looking at redistricting that as well. Florida, honestly, could come up with between 3 and 6 new seats as well. So if this happens, and it happens all before the 2026 midterms, technically you could have 40, 45, maybe even 50 new congressional district seats that would be predominantly red and Republican. Now, if we're able to do this, bye-bye Democrats. See you later. You might as well go to Venezuela where you can compete in elections, or Cuba where you can compete in elections, because you won't be able to compete here, thank God, anymore. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. But this is very, very important. Now, what's the left going to do? Well, to counter it, if this happens, they're going to try places like Chicago, right, where they're going to try to cut little smaller districts and things like that. You may see that in Portland. You may see that in Seattle. So, look, this is going to be a battle that's going to be ongoing for probably years to come. But if we can get it done now, clean up our elections, go through all 50 states' voter rolls, clean them all up, get rid of all the dead voters, get rid of all the duplicate voters, get rid of all the voters that no longer live in the state anymore, clean it all up, then 2026 could be absolutely huge for Republicans. I mean, you're talking 35, 40 seat advantage, maybe even more, and maybe picking up 2 to 3 more Senate seats, possibly the ones that were stolen. We should be at 57 right now instead of 54. Maybe picking up a few more of those, get to 55, 56 Senate seats. And then rolling into 2028, they won't be able to cheat in the elections in 2028 because we'll have had everything down pat. And guess what happens then? We dominate. We dominate. Probably Vance Rubio ticket. I don't think anybody could beat that ticket. Not only is Vance smart and articulate and everything else, but he would just basically be handed the keys to a well-oiled Lamborghini or Ferrari or Rolls-Royce by President Trump, and he'll say, here you go, JD. Here's the keys. Drive it carefully. Don't take it too fast around the corners. Watch where you go. Lock it up. Make sure you do everything right. And that's it. Just keep this beautiful Ferrari revving, which is the economy, and keep it going and keep it going. You put Marco Rubio as articulate as he is, not to mention he speaks fluent Spanish. He could do ads in Spanish on radio and television as the VP He knows how to fight. He knows how to speak. He's articulate. And he's shown that he's definitely become very much MAGA. He'll take all the Hispanic vote, keep it with us. He'll take other minorities, keep it with us. I'm telling you, it's an unbeatable ticket. Okay? You heard that in 2025. Okay? Vance Rubio 2028 is an unbeatable ticket. Nobody can beat it. All right? So anyway, we'll see what happens. Now, next, let's move on to the Democrats. Okay.
I'm not too proud.
Okay, let's move on now to the Democrats. The imploding Democrat Party, which again should rename itself the Commucrat Party or the Communist Party of the United States, because that's basically what they are, right? They're not socialists. They've gone past socialism to communism. And you know what? Many people that were solidly on the left are now waking up and realizing. You know, I said this a long time ago when they had all those crazy TikTok videos and X videos all over after Kamala got wiped out, and you had all these crying liberals saying, oh my God, what's wrong with the people? We're wearing, what was it, blue bracelets? Yeah, that lasted about, 20 hours or whatever, right? They did all these crazy things. I'm shaving my head. It's the only thing I can do, right? Just all this nonsense. I said at the time, okay? I said at the time publicly, I would say 25 to 30% of those crazies that were crying on videos on TikTok and elsewhere, they're going to become Republican voters by 2028. And actually maybe even by 2026. Because they're going to see the results. They're going to see everything that we have already said is going to happen and is continuing to happen, right? So there's a lot of people that maybe voted for her because they weren't sure. They didn't know what Trump was going to do, what he said he was going to do. They're now going to be solidly in President Trump, or in this case, Vance's column here. And so I want you to listen to Chris Cuomo, formerly of CNN, taking calls on his show. And these are people that hated Trump, hated him, voted against him, most of them, and listen to what they have to say now.
I'm not too proud to say that I am wrong about Trump. I'm a proud Democrat.
How so?
And he's done a lot of things. Immigration. I'm happy about what's happening with immigration. I thought the stock market would tank, and I'm pretty happy with my 401k. There's a few things that I just thought things would go wrong, and I'm very happy.
Well, that is big of you to say. It'll probably lose you some friends in this polarized environment that we're in right now. But there's nothing wrong with being happy with results, no matter who gives them to you, right? So I appreciate your candor. Next.
And you know what? A lot of calls saying the exact same thing. And the sad part is that she feels that she can't.
So the producer comes on and says to Chris, we have a lot of calls saying the exact same thing. So this is not just one-off or an isolated incident. This is many people calling in saying that I was wrong about Trump and I love Trump now and I'm going to support Republicans. Listen.
Can't say it, But anyway, David from Tamaqua, Pennsylvania.
David, what are you wrong about?
Hi, Mr. Carver. First of all, I'm a registered Democrat who voted for Trump. I thought this would never happen, but some of the Democratic Party is finally walking up and saying President Trump is doing something good. They were meeting at a Senate meeting. What they're doing is great. What they started doing is to reunite themselves and reunite us. So please keep it up. Keep meeting, keep talking, keep fixing things, keep uniting us and the parties together. This will make our country stronger than ever in the world. I love it.
Good for you. Good for you. Fix.
It.
Instead of telling us why the other guy's worse, how do you make it better? Fix. You're right. I'm with you, David. Next.
Greg, Mr. Positive, is he there?
He's never been wrong.
You there, Mr. Positive?
Mr. Positive. Sorry, I
No,
only text with him
Maddie,
every
go
day.
to Maddie Stew real quick. Maddie Stew. But I think he has a similar sentiment.
Maddie, what are you wrong about?
Hey, Chris, I was wrong to hate President Trump, and it took October 7th for me to realize that, and him coming into office, and with whatever the Democrats are these days, and the rise of anti-Semitism, to make Trump the common sense hero of Israel these days.
So there you have it. That was Chris Cuomo's show with Democrats calling in saying that they're now supportive of President Trump. And it's pretty simple because he won on the fact that I'm going to do the largest, deportation program in U.S. history. And people said, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. And he said, yeah, I am. I'm going to keep my promise. And that's what he's been doing. Despite the injunctions, despite these left-wing radical extremist judges that are getting in the way every chance they can get. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has come through and has banned nationwide injunctions so that now these judges, these radical activist judges, if they do want to do an injunction, it only counts for the district in which they represent that area and not throughout the entire country. And if they do ignore the Supreme Court and they do try to do a nationwide injunction, Supreme Court's already ruled President Trump has the legal and constitutional authority to tell them to pound sand and ignore their rulings. So we are winning. We are winning. And obviously we want to get to a point where there's going to be plenty of indictments. And that, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know when it's going to happen. All I know is that there is so much activity through the Department of Justice, through the FBI, through the CIA, through all the different things that we're hearing about. They are working diligently behind the scenes. I'm hoping for a multiple indictment Christmas celebration. Okay, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what the Jew wants for Hanukkah. He wants a multiple indictment celebration. Okay, that's what I want to see right before the end of the year. Now, are we going to see that? Gosh, I don't know. I sure hope so. It might take a little bit longer. It might take until March or April of 2026. I don't know. But I think you're going to start to see lots of them fall. Now, the other part of this is, can we get what we need done and indictments and prosecutions done in Washington, D.C.? Or can we move the venues outside of Washington, D.C. based on bias, juries, and things like that? That, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a lawyer, I don't play one on television, but I'm sure the Department of Justice, if they're going to bring these strong, ironclad, evidence-based cases, they're probably going to figure out a way to try to get them outside of Washington, D.C. so that they can be fair and impartial. But we'll have to see what happens. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about before we end, we're just going to do 2 segments, I think, tonight. Maybe 3, but probably just 2, is this. I don't understand how this guy keeps his job at CNN, but God bless this Harry Enton guy, right? Every single time he comes up and does his thing on the board, he is just pissing in the Democrats' Cheerios. And he does it every day, it seems. So God bless him for doing that. Here's his latest, okay? I'll play you his latest. All right, so it says, running the numbers, love it, like it, lump it. Trump's remaking the United States. Here's what he says.
The Donald Trump administration is arguably the most influential this century and probably as well dating back a good portion of the last century as well. Love it, like it, lump it. Trump is remaking in the United States of America. Let's talk about tariffs first, right?
Okay, so the tariffs right now are the highest rate since the 1930s, okay, since FDR. Last year, in 2024, under the Otto Penn administration, they averaged only a 2% rate. A 2% rate for tariffs. It now averages 18%, 16 percentage points higher. So here, listen.
All this talk that Donald Trump always chickens out when it comes to tariffs. No tacos for Trump. The effective tariff rate, get this, it's 18%, the highest since the FDR administration in the 1930s, up from, get this, just 2% last year. From just 2% last year, we're talking about a level, an effective tariff rate level get this, 9 times as high this year than last year. But it's not just on tariffs, which of course Donald Trump ran.
Now think of the difference between 2% and 18%. That's 16%. Think of how much money that is in billions of dollars coming into the United States economy in tariff revenue from all these different countries that we have now worked out tariff deals with. The amount of money that's coming into this country and will continue to come into this country is mind-blowing and astronomical. God bless President Trump. Here's some more.
On, in which you're seeing a tremendously influential presidency. What about immigration? Of course, Trump ran and has always run on a very...
Okay, so this says 2025 net immigration to the United States down from 2.8 million, according to the ones they actually documented. There's probably another 5 to 10 million more that they didn't. But the ones that they documented, 2.8 million came in 2024. I want you to think about that. 2.8 million came in, according to this, in 2024. Now, a 60% decrease and may hit negative for the first time in 50 plus years.
Very hawkish immigration platform. Get this, 2025 net migration in the United States down at least 60% from last year. In fact, we may be heading for the first time in at least 50 years in which we have net negative migration into the United States. And last year, of course, in 2024, the net migration in the U.S. was 2.8 million. This year, we might be talking about negative net migration. My goodness gracious. Now, of course, this is part of a larger story, as I was mentioning. We're talking about immigration, net migration. We're talking about the effective tariff rate. But get this. How is Donald Trump doing it? Well, he has signed...
Okay, it says executive orders signed by Trump so far. 180, most in a year since FDR. And it's not even a year. It's only 6 months. Okay? The Auto Pen administration did 77 in their first year, I think, alone, which he'll talk about. But what's the other part of this? Only 28 of the 180 issued have been codified into law, so that is about a 15% codification rate. That is not enough, not even close.
A ton of executive orders. Get this, 180, the most in a year since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh my goodness, you have to go back to the first half of the 20th century, the last century, and to make a comparison, Joe Biden signed, get this, just 77 during his entire first year, and we're only a little bit in August so far, and Donald Trump making history with 180 executive orders signed so far this year. So that's why I said that in my mind, Donald Trump is the most influential president of this century and probably dating back a good portion of the last century. That is because he is remaking the country in terms of tariffs. He is remaking the country in terms of net migration, and he is remaking the country in terms of how much policy changes he's putting through in executive orders. As I said, it truly is history making. Love it, like it, or lump it.
There you go. So, to everyone out there, be patient. We are changing the country. Can we change it all in 6 months? Think of the damage that they have done to this country in the last 4 years. How many millions of people were here illegally? How many people are on welfare? How many people are sucking the system dry, right? So it's going to take a lot of time to straighten it all out. So we have to be patient. It's only been 6 months, and it is historic. It is historic what we have already accomplished in just 6 months. Now, I want the codification of these executive orders to be permanent. So is that going to be included in potential future bills and things like that? Yeah, it should be, because that's what they did this last time. They codified about 28. What they need to codify is the SAVE Act. What they need to codify is getting rid of the machines. What they need to codify is so many other things related to election integrity. So we'll see what happens. But everybody out there, just understand, we still got a little close to 3.5 years to go. Imagine what it will look like by 2028. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.